Hey everyone, good morning. Thanks for being here. I'm Chris, and I'm a PM at Fabric and now Firebase, and I'm also a co-founder. I was a co-founder of a mobile startup. So I know firsthand from experience and from talking to customers like you just how hard it is to get more users. Building a really good growth funnel is insanely hard, and it's always changing. It's super complex. And so as a PM over the last couple of years, I've been focused on this problem of growth for mobile apps, and especially focused on the identity portion of growth. And a lot of people don't think that identity is like a really important part of growth and growth hacking and whatever. But it actually really is, because you can have an amazing onboarding funnel, but if people can't or won't log into your app, then you don't get a user, you don't have growth. And so it's super important. And we've especially seen a lot of great success with using phone numbers as an effective identity for growth. So why phone numbers? One, they have a lot of great benefits. One, they're global. Every single person in the world who has a smartphone has a phone number that they have memorized. And actually, in a lot of emerging markets, we've learned that people prefer to use their phone numbers as their identity instead of an email address or another form of identification. And second, phone numbers are higher quality. They give you higher quality users. Because they're more expensive to mass produce, they're naturally resistant to the kinds of abuse and fraud you might see more often in other types of identification. And also, I think most importantly for this discussion is they enable really low friction sign-in for apps and websites. And again, like I said, sign-in is such an important part of your growth funnel. Over 90% of people who have issues logging into an app are going to leave. And so I think it's a scary number, but I think it's a great opportunity that if you really focus on identity as part of growth, you can have really awesome benefits. And so if identity is so important to growth, then why is login so hard to use? And I think as app developers, as web developers, we created the login screens. And so why are we making these screens so hard to use? And over the years, I've noticed there's really two big areas of why login is so high friction. One big one is a problem of optimization. We're trying to do so much in a little screen that should be simple. Instead, in addition to just trying to log somebody in or sign them up, we're also trying to get a way to contact them by getting their email address. We're also trying to enforce some level of security, usually with some sort of password credential criteria. And we know as developers that passwords don't increase security as much as they increase frustration and friction. One big reason. Another big reason why login is so high friction is on the opposite side of the spectrum. And I'm definitely guilty of this myself, is we're so focused on the core value of the app that we're creating that we don't really spend a lot of time on login. It's just like something that we throw together before we ship. But the big disconnect there is that the first screen our customers see is a login screen often. And so the last screen you thought about is the first screen your customers are going to be experiencing. So a huge disconnect. And those are two big reasons why there's a lot of friction in login. And as developers, we know that login is harder than it needs to be. Most developers are not happy with their sign-in experience. But I know it's rational that we'd rather focus on the core value of our apps, our core ideas that we want to get out to the world. And dealing with login is hard. There's UX implications, there's security implications, and it's just not something people using our app is more important to us than people logging into it, at least when we're building apps. And so with all that in mind, a couple years ago, our team wanted to experiment taking phone numbers and wrapping them into a really simple login experience. And it looked like this. Instead of entering your email address and phone number, or email address and password, you'd enter your phone number. And in return, you get a 6-digit code. You punch that code in, and you're logged in. Really simple, secure login with no password. We took that experience and dropped it into a really simple-to-use SDK called Digits. Digits was something that people from any technical background could dump into their apps or websites in a few more moments than it takes to actually log into Digits. And we let it go. And how it went was, I think, pretty well. Since launching, almost 150 million people have logged in with Digits all around the world. That's been a really fun ride. We've learned a lot. But I think what I've really enjoyed the most is talking to developers like you and hearing your stories about the things that you care about when it comes to growth and identity and authentication. And obviously, performance is a huge factor to that. Our good friends at Doblet replaced email login with phone as one of the options for their app, and they saw a 45% increase in sign-in rates. Imagine your own growth funnel and making one small change that can give you 45% more users every day into your app. I think that's cool for a couple of reasons. One, it shows that phone is a legitimate way to log people in. And second, it shows that, like I said, like any changes you can make to the identity portion of your growth funnel might have huge impacts for your entire growth all the way through. Or Musical.ly, who is improving the quality of their accounts by enforcing digits phone verification. So what they're doing is they're reducing fraud on their in-app economy, which I think is a really smart use of digits. And again, at Trust, Periscope, they're early partners of Digits, and they're still using us. And by letting us handle their onboarding flow for them, they're able to focus on their core value, which is delivering live video to people anywhere in the world. Or Dubsmash, who, again, they relied on us to handle almost 2 million people per month through Dubsmash so that they can focus on the core value of what they offer to customers. And so these kind of topics have come up over and over again: trust, performance, and reliability. And performance has always been the biggest thing because, frankly, you hired us to do a job. The job is to give you more users, and we wanted to give you more users. And so earlier this year, when we joined Google, we saw this really amazing opportunity to take all the iteration and UX research that we put into DigitsKit and combine it with the really unique capabilities that Google has to offer. And so we put our heads down, and a couple of days ago, we saw some really cool announcements. And I think that what we came up with are some really awesome next evolutions in phone auth performance together in Firebase. And so to share how you can take advantage of that today, we're going to be talking about two topics. One, for those of you who are already managing your own SMS backend, you know how hard it can be to actually get a well-formatted phone number from a customer. And so there's some really cool new APIs that we're going to be discussing first. And second, I'm really excited to be sharing more details on Firebase phone authentication, which has been a really tight collaboration between the Digits engineering team and Firebase to create a brand new service that I think is philosophically and effectively the next logical evolution of what we want to do at Digits in terms of phone auth performance. It's a really amazing system, and it also has a really easy-to-use migration path for Digits customers. And so I would encourage every Digits customer to take a look at it, because I think it's really badass. And so to get us kicked off, please welcome Vikas on stage, who's going to be talking about phone selector and SMS retriever. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And hello, everyone. My name is Vikas, and I work in the Android Auth team at Google. I'm going to talk about how we enable you to support phone numbers for authentication if you have an existing backend infrastructure that you are already using for verifying the phone numbers, such as for sending SMSs to your users. You may have your own SMS infrastructure, or you might be using a third-party service, such as Twilio. So, as Chris mentioned, using phone numbers for authentication is great, as it offers several benefits over traditional authentication methods. But still, signing in a user with phone numbers is still problematic for some users and for app developers. Let's see what a sign-in experience with phone numbers looks like today. It involves two steps. First, getting the phone number of the device, and second, verifying the phone number. Most apps perform verification by sending an SMS to the user's device with a one-time verification code that the application then verifies. So the app has to get the phone number of the device and then read the verification code from the SMS. So how do the apps get these two things? Most of the apps basically ask the users to enter these values. But that's not a great solution for many reasons. First, manually inputting the phone number is painful. It adds a lot of friction for the users to provide phone numbers to your app. It's also error-prone. It's important to note that every failed verification because of a typo in the phone number adds cost to the app developers because they end up sending an SMS to the wrong phone number. Let's say the user provides you the phone number, and you send the SMS to the phone. The next step for you is to get the verification code from the SMS. Again, asking the user to provide you the verification code is painful for the users. It requires the users to leave your app, go to the SMS app, copy or remember the verification code from there, come back to your app, and then provide it there. It's a lot of work for the users. Many users find it confusing, and it's not a great experience. So many app developers have recognized these problems with the manual inputs. And what they've started to do is they are now reading the verification code and the phone number automatically. But this approach has its own problems. Let's see. Getting the phone number from the device and the verification code from the SMS automatically requires your apps to get permissions from the users. And this looks something like this. These permissions allow the apps to get the access to all the phone calls and all the SMS messages of the user. Users are left confused as to why your app needs access to all these phone calls and SMS messages. So this leads to a low adoption rate and a poor user experience. And from privacy perspective, it's not a great solution for your apps. With Google Play Services SDK, we are offering you best of both the worlds. We enable you to read the phone number and the verification code from the SMS automatically without requiring these extra permissions. For reading the phone number, we have the Phone Selector API. And for verifying the phone number, we have the SMS Retriever API. Since these APIs are part of the Google Play Services SDK, they are also compatible with the older versions of Android platform. Let's take a look at the Phone Selector API first. The Phone Selector API provides the phone number to your app with a much better user experience and no extra permissions. Using this API, you can launch a dialog which shows the phone numbers on the device to the user. When the user selects the phone number that they want to use to sign in into your app, that phone number is provided to your app immediately without requiring any extra permissions. You can check out the usage of this API in the apps like Myntra, Lyft, and Flipkart. Let's see how you can use this API in your app. First, you create a hint request object and set the phone number identifier supported field to true. And then you get a pending intent from that hint request for the phone number selector dialog. Once the user selects the phone number, that phone number is returned to your app in the on activity result. It's that simple. Once you have the phone number, the next step for you is to get the verification code to verify the phone number. In order to help you with that, we have the SMS Retriever API. So let's take a look at that. SMS Retriever API provides you the message content to your app without requiring any extra permissions. And the key part is that it provides you only the message targeted to your app. All you have to do is, in your SMS message, in addition to the verification code, you have to include an app-specific hash. This app-specific hash is a static hash that you can just include in the SMS template without requiring many code changes. Let's see how you can use SMS Retriever API in your app. When you want to verify the user's phone number on the device, you start the SMS Retriever. This makes it wait for one matching SMS, which includes the app-specific hash. After starting the SMS Retriever, you can just send the SMS with the verification code and the app-specific hash to the phone using any backend infrastructure of yours. Once the SMS with the app-specific hash is received on the device, it is provided to your app via a broadcast. In your broadcast receiver, you can get the message content from the extras. Once you have the message content, you can extract the verification code and verify the code just like you would normally do. This The SMS Retriever API, you can use it for not just signing in the users, but also for reauth use cases, such as for payments. The SMS Retriever API will be available in Google Play services. It will be available in the Google Play services in the coming weeks. But our early partners who have tried this API have loved it. Here are some testimonials from some of our partners. Many of our partners, like Authy, they love the fact that these APIs work with their existing infrastructure. We have carefully designed our APIs so that they are very easy to integrate with your existing flows. Myntra, for example, was able to successfully integrate the SMS Retriever API in their existing sign-in flows in just 3 days with one engineer. Here are other testimonials. Many of our apps have been able to get rid of the scary permissions and streamline the phone number verification flows because of our APIs. Cascus Chat actually found out that their conversion rates increased after they integrated their flows with our APIs. So I just talked about how with Phone Selector API and SMS Retriever API, we enable you to simplify the phone auth process if you already have a backend infrastructure in place. Next, we are going to talk about the Firebase Phone Auth, which helps you get started with the phone auth. And if you're looking for an end-to-end solution, this is how it will help you. So with that, please welcome Dev, who is going to talk more about the Firebase Phone Auth. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas, and hello, everybody. My name is Dev Rishi, and I'm the product manager for Firebase Authentication. You've heard about some really cool things that phone number authentication can do for your application. And today, I'm really excited to talk to you about how Firebase Phone Auth can make it possible to build all of these really great flows end-to-end and very easily. So before we start, I feel like I have to acknowledge that since we've launched, phone number authentication has been one of our top feature requests constantly. To all the developers that tweeted, posted on Stack Overflow, or filed a feature request, I just want to say that we've heard you, and I'm really excited to be able to bring this functionality to Firebase now. And it's no surprise that so many people have been asking for this. Today's apps need to be able to support high-quality, low-friction users from all over the world and engage with them in new ways. And that makes phone number auth really valuable. But the truth is, for a lot of the apps that actually don't have phone number authentication today, building it in the first place can be a real struggle. Chris talked about a lot of the pains that users go through, but it's also really painful for a lot of developers. The first thing you'll need to do is integrate with an SMS provider and get coverage with carriers to send SMS. And then you're going to want to expand your offering globally to support all the different areas that your users might come from, making sure you've perfectly localized along the way. After all of that, you need to build secure authentication. That means generating a one-time code, verifying it from a user, minting cryptographically signed tokens, persisting sessions, writing your anti-abuse logic. I don't know about you, but that's not exactly what I was looking forward to when I started to write an app. That's why I'm really excited to tell you that this week, Firebase launched its phone authentication APIs. The first thing that we allow is we enable basic sign-in and sign-up flows, similar to what Chris talked about earlier with digits, on all of the platforms that we support, iOS, Android, and web. And on Android, we actually allow for a few built-in enhancements. Vikas told you a little bit about the SMS Retriever API, which actually increases overall conversions from users so they don't have to end up going to the SMS app and parsing it. And I'm excited to announce that this is going to come built into our Android APIs. Finally, we have a really new cool piece of functionality called instant verification on Android. And I can't wait to tell you a bit more about that. The iOS and web APIs are actually available for you to start trying today. And the Android APIs will be coming in a few weeks. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and see what these APIs are capable of. First thing that we want to make sure we enable your app to do is allow you to sign in and sign up your users. So, for example, if you're in an iPhone, the flow might look a lot like this. Perhaps you're one of the many modern apps that integrates email authentication as well as different identity providers. And in this case, you decide to go ahead and sign in with phone number. All a user would need to do is enter their phone number, and you can go ahead and pass it over to us. We'll validate the phone number, handle any normalization logic that needs to happen, see if this is a new user or a returning one, and we'll go ahead and generate a one-time code associated with this request. From there, we'll handle sending this one-time code through an SMS to your end user, so you don't have to worry about any of those pieces. And your user will simply pass back the code into your application, and which you would just pass right back on to us, and we will verify it. We'll handle any of the complex logic and deduplication if you sent multiple SMS by mistake, or any of the other edge cases that might arise. And the user will go ahead and enter their code, we'll validate it, and we'll go ahead and mint cryptographically signed tokens, persist sessions, the whole authentication 9 yards. And you won't have to worry about any of it, because all you'll have to worry about is how to best and warmly welcome your users into your application. So that's kind of what the actual APIs look like for signing in and signing up users on all the platforms that we support, iOS, Android, and web. But I'm really excited to talk about some of the enhancements that we're able to make on Android. The first one is auto-retrieval, which works very similarly to what Vikas discussed earlier, and comes built in if you use our phone auth APIs. For auto-retrieval, if a user goes ahead and clicks sign in with a phone number, this time they can actually select their phone number if you integrate with Hint Selector. It'll be auto-populated into the application. We'll validate it once more. We'll generate the code, but this time, when we actually send the code in the SMS, we'll be able to pick it up from the background. We'll auto-retrieve it directly, parse it out, and populate it into the application. And the best part of all of this is your user never actually had to leave your application, go to an SMS tab, wait for it, and then copy and paste the code into your UI. They stayed in your application the entire time, and it was a really seamless experience for them overall. That's all that you ever had to do. The last piece of infrastructure that I'm really excited to talk to you about today is a new feature on Android that we're calling instant verification. Instant verification works exactly like it sounds like. It allows us to verify the phone number without sending an SMS. And to the user, it appears instantly. Let's take a quick look at how it works. In this case, the user might see the screen again, where they get to select a phone number directly that we read off their device. This time, when they enter their phone number and you call our APIs, we're going to do a first check. That check will go ahead and see if we have verified this phone number on the device recently. If we have, we can actually instantly verify the phone number the next time around without needing to send any additional SMS. We think that this means there's no wait time, no SMS, or anything else, just pure simplicity. And I'm really excited about the potential this has to significantly improve user experience and greatly simplify the lives of our developers. I think one of my favorite things about Firebase Phone Auth is that all of this powerful functionality is also really easy to use. There's essentially just 2 steps to go ahead and get started. The first thing you need to do is just enable Phone Auth within your project in the Firebase console. This is quite literally clicking on the phone selector and enabling Phone Auth with a single flag flip. It doesn't actually get much easier than that. The second thing you need to do is just integrate with our SDKs and our APIs in order to be able to use this functionality. Now, our headless APIs don't enforce any UI, so they give you programmatic access to our underlying infrastructure that you can use in any way that you choose. And it's really easy to use. On Android, in order to get all the awesome functionality that I talked about, the actual ability to generate and send codes, the auto-retrieval, even instant verification, comes down to just one single API call and the implementation of the callbacks that you care about. So in this case, all you would do is call verify phone number with a phone number that you pass in and implement a few callbacks, for example, on verification completed, where you can decide whatever it is you'd like to do once we've either auto-retrieved the SMS, instantly verified the phone number, or whenever the user has just decided to be signed in. I think all of this functionality is really powerful. These APIs are very simple to use and give you programmatic access to some of our most incredible infrastructure here at Google. But I think it's really worth asking, what about UI? Building authentication UI can be pretty complex. You need to handle all sorts of edge cases across all the different platforms your application might support. And even after you do all of that, you want to make sure that your login UI is actually high performance, and it will give you good conversion rates. As Chris talked about earlier, this isn't really what a lot of you want to spend your time doing. The first screen that your users see is often the last screen that you think about. And building out all of this UI can honestly be painful. Trust us, we know, because we've actually done it. We wrote out all the code for the different phone authentication flows that we've talked about just for the UI components on Android, iOS, and web. And just to write the phone authentication flows across the three platforms, it can be several thousands of lines of code. Now, if you decide to go the way of a lot of modern applications and integrate different identity providers, such as Google, Facebook, email, et cetera, then this is just going to get more complex. And if you actually end up wanting to integrate all these different sign-in providers into your application, well, doing identity and user sign-up is probably going to become your full-time job. That's why I'm really excited to announce that Firebase Phone Auth is now also part of Firebase UI. And Firebase UI is an open source repository on GitHub that we maintain that gives you the best practices in sign-in and sign-up that Google has studied over a long history of doing identity work directly and out of the box for your applications. This is really bringing years and years of knowledge from Google's understanding of how to maximize conversion rates directly into your application. It's really simple to integrate into your app, and it gives you the best practice flows for all the different platforms. Best of all, Firebase UI is completely open source and fully customizable. So as soon as you integrate it into your application, you can go ahead and tweak and tailor it directly into the needs of your app, however you decide you would like to. But you don't just have to take my word for it on how easy Firebase UI is to use and how easy these APIs are to integrate. I can actually show you. So I call this part of my talk, What Could Possibly Go Wrong? Because it is not only a live demo that I'd like to do in order to show you the cool functionality and how easy it is to build into our applications, but before this week, I'd actually never touched a line of Android code before in my life. Luckily, building phone authentication is actually really easy, and I'm going to be able to do it, I hope, in just a couple of minutes into my application. So before this demo, the only thing I've done is actually create a project, and as you can tell, there's not a lot going on here. I'm not sure I could actually do that much more. All I've done so far is just get the dependencies. As you know, the public versions of the Android APIs will be coming out in a few weeks. From here, I can actually build phone authentication into my application in just 3 simple steps. The first step is I'm going to link Firebase to my application through the super easy-to-use Android Studio plugin. I'll go ahead and go to authentication, click email password, and as you can see, I've set up my dependencies, and I'll just hit connect to Firebase. This is going to open up a dialog that will allow me to either create a new Firebase project or link to an existing one. In this case, I'm just going to link to EasyAuth, which is the Firebase project that I had set up. Now that I've connected it to it, that was step 1. Connecting this through the Android Studio plugin was all I needed to do for step 1, and step 2 is even easier. I'm just going to go over to the Firebase console, go to the Authentication tab, go to Sign-in Methods, and here we can see all the different sign-in methods that Firebase Authentication currently supports. I've already configured a few in the past, like email, Google, and Facebook, and I'm just going to enable phone. This part is quite literally just that flag flip I showed you earlier, and we're done with step 2. Now, if you'll believe me, step 3 is just as easy as the last 2, even though it's the step where we write code. All I'm going to do is go to the open source Firebase UI GitHub repository, scroll through the README, ignore most of it, and go to this one section that I care about, where I'll be able to copy and paste the code directly into my application to get my phone UI built. Now, this allows me to support a lot of different sign-in providers, like the ones you saw before. And in this demo, instead of Twitter, I'm going to decide to support phone verification. That was it. That's all I had to do. Luckily, because again, I'm not actually an Android developer. Once I go ahead and compile this application, if I could switch to my phone, please. Thank you. I will be able to show you exactly all the different flows that we integrate with end to end. So now I have multiple different login methods enabled on my demo app very easily. And I can show you exactly how the phone auth flows work in real life. Fingers crossed I have carrier coverage here. First thing you'll notice is Firebase UI integrates with Hint Selector directly. So I didn't write any additional code for this, but it's able to pick up my phone number from the device, and I can just simply enter it directly into the app. Now, when I hit Verify Phone Number, it'll go ahead and send me a code, which will directly get read off the SMS. And I don't know if you actually caught it because it was so fast, but the number was, thank you very much. The code was sent to my device, immediately written from the SIM. But from an end user perspective, it was the easiest thing I've done all day. All I did was really tap my phone number, and everything else was taken for me. The SMS was delivered, it was parsed, it was taken. I never left the app. Now let's imagine that I'm coming back to the application, maybe after a week or two, and I'd signed out. This time, I'm going to try and demo a really cool piece of functionality that I'd mentioned earlier, instant verification. This time around, when I go to the application, I'll hit sign in with phone number again. It'll pull up the phone number from my device, just like last time. And I hope what's going to happen is I'm just going to do single tap login, where I go ahead and select my phone number. It sees that I'd already been verified in the past, and that was it. No SMS was sent, nothing else. Can we see an instant replay, maybe? Because that was so quick. There was no SMS sent. There was no need for a user to wait for anything. But instead, we were able to just validate that we'd verified it and log them in directly into the application. So I'm really excited about this functionality, the potential it has for where we can go in the future. And I can't wait to see how you integrate into your applications. Can we go back to the slides? Thank you. Thank you. So I think one of the things you just saw is how easy it was to build Firebase Phone Authentication from scratch. And I think one other thing that we've thought about a lot as we've actually developed this is how do we make sure we have the best possible experience for Digits developers? As Chris mentioned earlier, building Firebase Phone Authentication was a really close collaboration between the Firebase Auth and the Digits teams. And we want to make sure that we're able to warmly welcome Digits into the Firebase family. That's why I'm happy to announce that we've started to roll out migration pathways for Digits developers, where they'll be able to link their Fabric accounts with Firebase projects, and we'll handle the user importation and all other tasks required in order for them to get set up for their first time. From there, they can go ahead and use some migration guides that will be published soon in order to integrate the new Firebase SDKs into their application. And that's all they should have to do. There won't be any additional friction for your users who won't have to necessarily re-authenticate back into your application. And I hope all of you stay tuned on the Fabric site for the coming details. I'm really excited that we've launched phone authentication, because I think now Firebase is an even more comprehensive authentication solution. Now we support all the different major sign methods your application might want to support, like email authentication, phone numbers, and some of the top identity providers like Facebook, Google, Twitter, and GitHub. We also give you easy user management UI from the console, as well as SDKs in order to do all the different tasks that you might want to on behalf. You can bring your own custom authentication solution to Firebase if you've already had one. And I think best of all, we give you drop-in and fully customizable open source UI that reflects Google's best practices. So you never have to worry about how to best write the conversion flows for your application. You never have to worry about all the thousands of lines of code that it might take. I think one of the things that's great about Firebase Authentication is that most of the services are completely free to use. And I'm really excited to say that with PhoneAuth, we spent a lot of time thinking about how do we come up with the most friendly pricing structure for our developers as possible. We have a really generous free tier, where I think for up to 10,000 verifications per month, we're actually going to be able to give all the verifications under this threshold for free. This will cover the vast majority of applications, and I think it's more than 90% of Digit developers will be able to use this service completely for free. If you do grow wildly successful, we want to make sure that our service continues to grow sustainably and scalably with you. But we also want to make sure that we give you really simple and easy to understand pricing. So we're only going to charge you based on what you care about, which is the actual verification of the user. And we're going to make the pricing structure really simple. Just 1 cent for a verification in US, Canada, and India, and 6 cents in the rest of the world for any of the verifications that go above and beyond the 10,000 verifications a month. I can't wait to see what you all build when this is in your hands. So to recap kind of on what we've talked today, we've really talked about 2 sets of optimizations I think Google is enabling for all the different applications out there that care about phone numbers. If you have your own phone auth infrastructure already, there's phone hint selector and SMS auto retrieval in order to really optimize those flows and make your end user experiences much better. If you want to build a phone authentication solution from scratch, Firebase Phone Authentication will give you the entire process end-to-end with some of our built-in enhancements very easily. And I think is a really compelling way to start getting into this space and being able to integrate this powerful technology into your applications. Like I said before, the iOS and web APIs for Firebase Phone Auth are out now, and the Android APIs for everything will be coming out in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, I do hope that you'll go ahead and check out our documentation, try us out today, and if you have any questions whatsoever, all of our contact information is listed out on the screen, and we'll be hanging out outside these tents and in the Firebase sandbox for a little bit afterwards as well. I really cannot wait to see what you build with this new technology. I'm really excited to help and continue to support our developers. Thank you very much.